Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa min tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawm ad-din wa ba'd. So we'd like to welcome you to week, I think it's week 11 or week 12. I can't remember. But as we posted, I have the number right, inshallah. So last week, we were off because we had the 40 Hadith intensive in Pittsburgh. So I had to let you all know that we wouldn't have class last week. So we're resuming from the week before, inshallah ta'ala. And we left off we covered points 46, lines 46 through 50. So we left off on line 50, inshallah. As I'm speaking right now, there are no students currently online. So I'll just wait like a couple more minutes and then we'll start, inshallah. Or we're just going to start and do the class as if somebody's here. I'm here, and the angels are here. So, mashallah, no worries. Okay, so let me get the screen up. Get this. Okay. So, inshallah, we'll just start with the review. So we was at week 12. Mashallah, this is week 12 actually. Okay. And so just a little review. The first one, not from last week. This has been like a review from the week before. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, how you doing, sweetheart? Okay. So no one else is here, so we're just reviewing from the week before, inshallah.
I just got to mute it because the girls is about to start.
Okay.
And you going to wait a few minutes or no?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay. So from the week before, we talked about two groups that were being refuted in this book. What are the name of those two groups? If you're not able to talk, you could just you could put in the chat box. So primarily throughout the book, the Sheikh Imam al-Laqqani was writing a refutation primarily to one group, and then he mentioned another group as we got into the points last week with respect to actions. You remember? Okay, so he talked about the two groups being the Mu'tazila and the Jabariyah. So those are the two groups that were talked about a refutation from the week before. Okay, so within those two groups, what were the beliefs of the two groups concerning the actions we want to review? They both had a specific belief, which made them alien from Ahl Sunnah wa Jama'ah. So the Mu'tazila, we had a discussion. What did they have about the actions? All right, so the Mu'tazila, they had a belief that a person, they created their own actions, independent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So their good and evil actions, that they did that on their own. And the Jabariyah, the groups who are the compellers, they believe that a person is not responsible for their actions because if their actions are be created by Allah and destined by Allah, then they are not really no responsibility on their actions. So if everybody is compelled what to do by Allah, then they have no responsibility with their actions. So we discussed that in the last session we had, inshallah. So they believe you have no control over your actions, and the Mu'tazila believe you have complete control over your actions. Okay, then we talk about the two types of actions, voluntary and involuntary. Which ones do we have control over? So we have control over the voluntary actions. So the involuntary actions, for instance, example that we mentioned, that if the weather gets cold, an involuntary action would be for your body to develop chill bumps. You can't stop the chill bumps from happening, but a voluntary action that you do, there's something that we use the word that's called kasb, the acquisition of something, So you acquire voluntary actions, so you have control of them, but involuntary actions you don't have control over. So the Mu'tazila believe that you have control over all your actions, and the Jawhar believe that you were compelled for all of your actions, compelled to do them. Okay, and then we have the statement here that Islam is a sign of bliss and not bliss itself, and kufr is a sign of wretchedness and not wretchedness itself. And then we have another statement that here says Islam is bliss and kufr is wretchedness, and they both can change. All right, so the thoughts that we want to discuss is that the first one, Islam is bliss and not is a sign of bliss and not bliss itself, and kufr is a sign of wretchedness and not wretchedness itself. So this is the view of the Asharis. And then the second one is Islam is bliss and kufr is wretchedness, and they both can change. So it's just a matter of semantics between the two groups of Aqidah from Ahl Sunnah. And what they mean by it is that based on the hadith that we mentioned, that's in the 40 hadith, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the person is created in the womb of their mothers for 40 days for a like period and like that. And then in the hadith, the angels come to them and their lifespans, their lifespans, their provision, could to be rizqihi or ajalihi or amalihi, his actions, or shakiyu al sa'idu. All right. So the hadith and 40 hadith about a person, a person whose matters will be written for them, assigned to the angels writes to them, and so they will be given what their risk will be, what their lifespan, what their actions they're going to do, and whether they will be happy or sad or miserable, meaning in the afterlife. So both of them had the same meaning, but just different wording, and it's based on the hadith. The rest of it, where a person can do the deeds of a person in paradise, and then they reach the, then the cut overtakes when they reach the top, the length of an arm span, and then the cut overtakes them, and then they can, they can end up being the people of hellfire and vice versa. So both they had, the meaning here is that a person can have Iman or Islam, and it may be that the cover overtakes them, only Allah knows. And the same way for someone who is a kafir, the color can overtake them and they end up being a believer. So it's according to your end and not how you begin. But the end is an indication of the beginning, and we discussed some of that last week. So that was the as far as the review. You got any questions? Okay. All right, so we'll proceed. We'll go to the next. We'll start with line 51, inshallah. So lines 51 and 52 are connected, so we'll do both of them. So line 51 says, وَقَوْلُهُمْ إِنَّ الصَّلَاحَ وَاجِبُ عَلَيْهِ زُورُ مَا عَلَيْهِ وَاجِبُ أَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَامَهُ الْأَطْفَالَ وَشِبْهَهَا فَهَادِرَ الْمِحَالَ فَهَادِرَ الْمِحَالَ. All right, so the translation of that is their statement that goodness or salah is necessary for him is a falsehood, but there is nothing necessary upon him. And have they not seen his causing of children to suffer pain and its equivalent? So beware of the punishment. So beware of the punishment. So this is the poetry of Imam al-Laqqani and his book Jawhar al-Tawhid, inshallah. And so now we will proceed to do a little explanation of it. So here that we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're still talking about Allah creating the actions and the creator of everything, that Allah is the sole creator. So part of the discussion we were having thus far is about the Mu'tazila and the Jabariya having extreme views about the actions of the servant. Of course, the Mu'tazila is saying that they're the creator of their own, and if they do evil, then Allah allowed them to do evil. And the Jabariya said it doesn't make a difference to try to do good or evil, because if it's already predetermined, like then what's the point? So, and we know that Ahlul Sunnah basically says that you try to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created both evil and good, but He commands you to the good, and He does not order you to the evil, even though He created it exists. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never commands you or puts you to the evil. And one of the signs of His favor and His mercy upon you is that He points you in the direction to do good, and He gives you the inclination to go to those things that are good. So here, when He said in the beginning, Qawluhum, and they're saying, meaning the Mu'tazila. Okay, so this is a refutation. This line is the Mu'tazila, who believe that Allah must do what is best for His creation, and that He does not and cannot create evil. And so they imply by that belief that they had that if Allah creates evil and all of the evil that takes place in the world, then evil is attributed to Him. And this is not something that's strange to people who don't have correct belief, because you hear this from people, even people who so-called have like faith and have religious foundation. When things go bad or bad things happen, they want to, why? They want to question Allah or, those kind of things. And so this is, you can see where this belief is coming from, the Mu'tazila. They saying that it was an obligation upon Allah to do what is best for His creation, and that He cannot create evil. Well, we already know in the prior class that Allah is the creator of everything, the good and the evil of it, So it all comes from Allah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands what is good and what is just, and He forbids us from doing evil. Even though He created it, He does not command us to do it. So this is a refutation of them. And then there's an ayat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, say, Allahu khaliqul kulli shay'in, wa huwa wahid al-qahar. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is in Surah Al-Ra'd, Surah 13, Ayah 16, that tell the Prophet say, Allah is the creator of all things, kullu shay'in, every single thing that Allah is the creator of. So that means belief and disbelief, good and bad. Anything that is a creation that has a beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of it. And so the belief of Ahlul Sunnah is that Allah is not required to do anything, like as opposed to what the Mu'tazila used to say. They said that Allah is required to do best for His creation. Allah is not required to do anything at all. But He does these things out of His justice and His mercy and His love, and Him giving us an opportunity to turn to Him. Because if He was required to do only what's good for His servant, He would have never created hellfire or even had allowed disbelief to exist. And also what we should understand is that what Allah does and what He wills is not subjected to the finite mind. So the Mu'tazila would, base one of their traits is that, they would prefer the aql over the naql. So they would accept the text, but then the instances where it didn't make sense to them rationally, then they would deny some of the things. So you see how some of these bad beliefs that they had. And so Ahl Sunnah, we also been accused of this, saying that we take the akal over the nakal. No, what we believe is that they're complementary, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't send a revelation except that it makes sense to the rational mind. And once you accept the revelation, it's going to make sense to the rational mind. Also knowing that, the mind is finite anyway, so you're not going to be able to accept everything rationally, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he doesn't do things in what they call that, a continuum, like, just, this, that in order. He does what he wills, however he wills, and we can never comprehend that. All right, is there any questions on that?
No.
Okay. All right, so the next line is line 53. While Imam al-Laqqani, he says, وَجَائِزٌ عَلَيْهِ خَلْقُ الشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ كَالْإِسْلَامِ وَجَهْلِ الْكُفْرِ. He said it is possible for him to create evil and good, such as Islam and the ignorance of unbelief. So here's the word jaiz. The three terms that we use, that is jaiz, wajib, and mustahil. So jaiz means that it's possible, mustahil, impossible, and wajib, that is necessary. All right. And so let's discuss this line a little bit. All right. So there is some wisdom in the creation of evil, So we already discussed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established that he created good and he created evil, and the good takes care of itself, but then the evil is where most people find it's problematic for most people to digest. How does this evil occur? Why do these things happen? And I think in the prior slide, he mentioned about children, and Imam al-Laqqani said, then look at the stuff that happens to children. You think that Allah deliberately, just allows children to suffer, allow children to, things that we see, children being kidnapped, taken advantage of. We don't attribute this to anything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's just something happened according to his divine will and plan. And, we can't really make sense of it, so we don't attribute the evil that we, it could be for whatever reason, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it could be out of his justice and it could be out of his mercy. And those things are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will never be able to fully fathom, because it will lead us, some of the scholars have said that, be careful of the qadr, like delving too deep into it, because it can lead you to doubt and it can lead you to disbelief. So we're going to discover in a couple of slides coming up the importance of the qadr. But some of the wisdoms in the creation of evil, because it exists, that we need to try to really put it in context. So the first one is that Allah did not make this world a permanent world. So both good and bad exist in it, so that, if we are, or people who really are really overtaken by the creation of evil, the existence of evil, but they're not overwhelmed by the creation of good that they experience. So the world has the lights, it has pleasures, it has good, it has evil, it has darkness, and all of these things. All of it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But just as the good, just as the good doesn't last forever, the bad doesn't last forever either. So that's the first wisdom, that we are in this world is not permanent, it is fleeting, and we're only here for a short period of time, and to show that we are worthy servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and giving our worship and dealing with the test that he has put on us to deal with good and bad. The second wisdom is that Allah has placed in the universe both a physical law and a moral law. And so we know about the law of cause and effect. If you do something, then something else will happen. That's in the physical world and in the moral world. And once those laws are violated, that is also, the effect can be evil. The effect can be evil. So when we see these things, sometimes the evil is a result of just how the law is, and it's just a law. There was nothing you can do to change it anyway. So there it's going to be some evil just by the laws of the universe. If something, you throw something in the air to come down, what if it hits somebody? That's just how it goes. If you don't take care of your health, or you don't take care of certain things, that you don't, if you have a diamond and you leave it lying on the ground, the effect is that somebody's going to pick it up. And do you attribute that to Allah? No, you don't attribute that to Allah. That was something that was a voluntary action on your behalf. So, and things like that, and many examples that we can think of. All right, so the next wisdom is in the creation of evil. And it's that suffering can be a test and a trial, and suffering for one is healing for another. So suffering can be a test and a trial, and that the Prophet ﷺ, he said that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes to favor his servants, that he puts them through like tremendous trials. So the test and the trial can be a means of purification, and it could be a means of elevating someone. So we think about the example of the Prophet Ayub alayhi salam and the trials that he went through, and that he lost his family and his wealth, and the period of time that he was exposed to the trial, and then he stayed patient, calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then everything was restored for him. And then also suffering from one is healing for another. Sometimes that people might have to sacrifice and put their lives on the line. We hear about this concept about the greater good, like someone is in the military and they go to fight, and in their mind they're doing the greater cause. They're ready to give their life for freedoms and all that kind of stuff. Then that somebody puts some type of sacrifice forward, so someone else can have a better chance at life. We do that as parents. We go through many trials and sufferings and hardships just so our children won't be subjected to the same things that we did. And I always like this saying from, what I heard from Mike Tyson. He said, I take the punches to the head so that my kids don't have to. I put it on my back. I take all of the suffering, the hardships, the difficulties, so that I'll sacrifice myself so that someone else can be easy. And many examples you could think of. So there's wisdom in that. The next one is suffering as a test to see how others react. So sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts the suffering, which will seem like it's evil, just to see, to test a person, to see how much good are they thankful for. Sometimes you might have someone Allah will bless you with a loved one, and then then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might subject that loved one to some type of sickness or something, and sometimes it's not for them, but it's for the person who's with them. To see, have you really been grateful for this person? So now that they've been tested with sickness or whatever, how will you respond to it? So, sometimes a test for somebody else is also a test for us. And that's how we should kind of look at it. And then, of course, hardships are a mean. One of the wisdom of the creation of evil, hardships, and difficulties, they are a means of removing sins and increasing in rewards. They are a means of removing sins and increasing in rewards. And so this is one of the statements of one of the teachers that I took this course with this book. He said, the question should not be why Allah allows suffering, but how much Allah protects us and saves us all the time in spite of our violations and negligence. So how often do we violate physical laws? How often do we violate moral laws? You could find people just violating these laws just for kicks, just to see if they can do something. Just think about someone, the submarine trip, someone just wants to see if they can go down on below sea level, way below where they're not equipped to, to live, just to see if they can do it, and look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala touched them with. And, if you've seen that online, people were all in an uproar. Oh, they were still human beings and all that. We shouldn't be saying that's what they deserve. Yeah, they did a voluntary action. They violated a physical law in the universe. There was nothing really beneficial about it except, just to be able to do it, And so and this is like the law of cause and effect. So, any questions on that? So we'll go to the next one. All right, so line 54. So line 54 reads, وواجب إيماننا بالقدر وبالقضاء كما أتى في الخبر. He says, and our belief in fate and divine decree is compulsory, or as has been mentioned in the hadith. وواجب إيماننا بالقدر وبالقضاء كما أتى في الخبر. All right. So we'll go to the next explanation of this line. So line 54, he mentions two concepts related to Iman, which is the Qadar and the Qadr. So we'll discuss the meaning of this. So the Qadar means the will of Allah, which determines the destiny and brings about the matters of everything pre-eternally. And we know now that the Qadar is written in the Lawh Mahfuz, all right, the preserved tablet, which everything that is written pre-eternally is in the Lawh Mahfuz. As a trivia question, where can you find where the Lawh Mahfuz is mentioned? What surah? Nobody want to take a guess. And in Surah Surah 85. What's the name of Surah 85? And the name escapes me. I'm looking for sorry to say it. So in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Fi Lawh Mahfuz, all right, in the preserved tablet. Buruj, Buruj, Surah Buruj. All right, so the Qadar is the will of Allah, which determines the destiny and brings about the matters of everything pre-eternally. And the Qadr, the definition of the Qadr is the creation of everything by Allah, in which He brings about and creates all things according to a certain measure and predestination in line with His decree. In line with His decree. And so what we understand from that, the Qadar is the eternal will, and the Qadr is the actions that stem from the eternal will. So the Qadar is already everything that's pre-decreed, and the Qadr is something, it's like, I can't think of an example, but, but it has its own world up in and of itself, but it doesn't override the Qadar. Right. And then he mentions here, so in this line of poetry, as the scholars have said concerning this explanation of this book, that here he mentioned the Qadr first in the line of poetry. He mentions the Qadr and then the Qadar. But traditionally, the Qadar is mentioned first in the Qadr because the Qadr is the eternal decree and the Qadr is the divine will, right? And here, when he said that it's wajib to believe in wajib, he means legally necessary. So that is a term that's called wajib shar'an, and a legal necessity to believe in that, and not wajib aqlan, rationally necessary. And what that means is that, it is just legally you should believe in this, but sometimes the color does not make sense to the rational mind. And that's when a person just has to resort to that they accept what the color is. And it's a process that takes time, because if you sit and think about it, why does Allah allow these things to happen? Why does, I used this example before, how does someone like Henry Kissinger gets to live to be 100 years old, who was a mass murderer and, killing innocent lives through all of the presidential American presidents that he, advised. How is it that four or five young women who are hufad of Quran, die in a car accident? To the rational mind, that you say that's not fair, that's not just. How does an evil person get to, live a long life, a comfortable life, rich life, and someone, just getting started and they made the sacrifice of memorizing the Quran and they die in a car accident? So all of that is by Allah's eternal will, And so rationally, that makes no sense, But Shara'an, it is wajib for us to accept it. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. So some more on the qada and the qadr. So the objectives and the purpose of the qada and the qadr. So the first one is being satisfied with the limits, decree, and destinies decided upon by Allah. His complete knowledge encompasses everything, and how the world functions is according to it, meaning that complete knowledge. So the only logical or rational recourse you could take with the qadr and the qada is that you being satisfied with rida, satisfaction or contentment that however Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had willed it to happen and decreed it to happen, that's how it was going to happen. It couldn't happen no other way. How it happened and the moment and the time and the circumstances, all is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eternal decree. And it is something that rationally we cannot really make a full judgment on it because we don't have the capability, and we will never understand this. So, and to try it that wouldn't be fair, because now it's like, we trying to figure out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has no beginning, no ending, no likeness, who existed before everything. We're trying to rationalize the one who gave us the mind to rationalize. It's just, it's not doable. It's not a go. All right. So the other thing is being satisfied with the limits. The next thing is that qadr cannot be used as an excuse for disobedience and sin. So some people might want to say, okay, it was the qadr for me to do this. It was the qadr for this. We should never attribute the qadr to what we have as voluntary actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and have we shown him the two ways? In Surah Balad, Surah 90, Ayat 10. Allah says, have we shown him the two ways, the ways between, good and evil, the ways between belief and disbelief, the ways between happiness and sadness, whatever, two ways. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows you two ways and favors you to go towards one way. So if you have the ability to go towards one way, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of his favor, gave you that inclination to do it. And if you go to the other way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't allow you to do it. That was something you did on your own, So it's not an excuse for disobedience and sins, because those are voluntary actions that we acquire by way of the word we use is kasb, or acquiring the actions on our own from the free will that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. So in that free will, he has shown us a way to go and a way not to go. And it's like, it's like two roads, and then have one with, like you ride down the street and had the lanes had a highlighters. Just imagine like a highlighter on a straight path, and the other path exists, but it's dark, So the highlighting is just, you pay attention to this. Even though that path is there, don't take it because it's not for you, And just because it's there, that doesn't mean it's for the taking, So, and then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we discussed this, he said that nothing in verse a destined decree except dua, and nothing but taqwa prolongs life. And this is found in the Musnad of Imam Ahmed rahimahullah. And so how do we understand this with respect to the qada is the pre-eternal will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the qadr is a subset of the qada. So the things that happen with the qadr, the qadr is like ongoing in the present time, but it's a reflection of the qada. And so how do we understand this hadith, that the dua can avert the destined decree, right? So here the scholars have explained that dua, with respect to dua and destiny, that the destiny is of two types. So the ordained destiny comes from the qada, or the eternal decree, and that destiny that from the qada, that is not going to change at all. That is already something to be pre-written, is set in stone, and nothing will change it. And then there's what's called the potential destiny, and that is from the qadr. So the things that are likely to happen, or could possibly happen, or possibly could not happen, and this is subject to change, but it is still, this is the remarkable thing about the qada and the qadr, that even the things that can change and not change, and go from this way to this way, all of that is from the eternal decree. All that is from the eternal decree. So what happens in the qadr does not supersede what has already previously been written. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us by way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that dua can change the destiny, then he wrote in the eternal decree that the dua would change the destiny. He wrote in the eternal decree that this dua will come into the qadr, and that will manifest into the person who makes the dua. And so that's, even the qadr that is ongoing and its potential change, or all of those things, all of that is from the decree. That's a concept that you really just can't do nothing but just accept it and how it goes, and the more you become faithful and the more you have experience, you realize that you just have to yield to the qadr, So those two types of ordained destiny and potential destiny. Any questions on that? And so we go to the next one. And so we put lines 55 and 56 together, and this will be the last lines for the class today, inshallah. So the way that the page had it when I copied them, I had to copy them. They didn't go together on the page like I did lines 51 and 52. So I put them in two things. I don't know if you can read them. So line 55 is, matter of fact, I got to look at my book. وَمِنْهُمْ أَنْ يَنْدِرَ بِالْأَبْصَارِ لَكِنْ بِلَا كَيْفِ وَلَا انْحِصَارٍ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بِهَا بِجَائِزُ خُلِقَتْ هذا وللمختار ذم مختار دنيا ثبتت. All right, so excuse me for that reading, but I can't really see that. Let me look on it. Okay. All right, I have it here in my book. وَمِنْهُ أَنْ يُنْظَرَ بِالْأَبْصَارِ لَكِنَّ بِلَا كَيْفٍ وَلَا انْحِصَارٍ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بِجَائِزٍ خُلِقَتْ هذا للمختار دنيا ثبتت. All right, so the translation of that is, and so from that which is possible is that he is seen with sight, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, however, without how and without encompassing him. I don't know if that's the same one, but in my book it has something. And for the believers, this is possible since it is connected to a possible event, and this is for the chosen one affirmed in this world. So I think this English here might say something different. And I don't have anybody read it for me, so. All right, so let's go to the next line, inshallah, and explain these two lines that was conclude for this class. So here, these two lines, they're talking about the beatific vision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the ability for the believers to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, so one of the views, there's an argument with Ahl Sunnah, is that it is rationally possible for the believer in this world, but not with eyes. And even though it is rationally possible, it is highly unlikely that a person will see Allah. They definitely won't see them in their eyes, like looking at something. And in the hereafter, it will be free from any cave, so free from a place, a direction, a modality, or incapacity. All right. So that is something, and the rationally possible for the believers seeing in the world. So there's an argument about if a believer sees Allah in a awakened state, in a sleeping state, and then those are conditions, but that you have to know who Allah is, that He is the one that can be encompassed. So if a person will not see Him in the awakened state, and in the sleeping state, they cannot see Allah, because if there was some type of form that it would say was Allah, then that's impossible. That can't happen, because the shaitan, because does not take the form of Allah, and nor does Allah take the form of anything, because He has no form like that. And so it would be a different kind of vision, but not something that the mind could conceive, So it'd be more like an experience, right? So, but that's just a rational argument that they present. And the reason why scholars are presented is because the rationally possible in this world, because of the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. All right, so we know the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam in Surah Al-A'raf, where he said that he wanted to see Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to look at the mountain. And when he looked at the mountain, that the mountain became did it crumble? I forget what the ayah says. Let's see. Can you still see the screen? Okay, let's bring up the ayat. So it says, and when Moses arrived at that appointed time, and his Lord spoke to him, he said, "My Lord, show me yourself, that I might look at you." Allah said, "You will not see me, but look at the mountain. If it should remain in place, then you will see me." But when his Lord appeared to the mountain, he rendered it level, and Moses fell unconscious. And when he awoke, he said, "Exalted are you. I repented to you, and I am the first of the believers." So this ayat is a proof of the rational argument about the possibility of seeing Allah, but it won't be like seeing what we think seeing is, So when he asked to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he saw the mountain, crumble. And then on when the Prophet ﷺ made the Isra and Mi'raj, they said that the Prophet ﷺ was the only one who was blessed to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life, because it is impossible for anyone else. But the rational argument that we mentioned earlier, is because of this likelihood, because if the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, for him to ask Allah to see him, then it means that it would have been ignorance on his part, if he didn't know better, So, and of course, that all of the prophets, they are attributed with intelligence, so they know what they're doing. And the Prophet ﷺ, there's an argument about whether he saw Allah or not, and there's a big argument about this, even with the companions, as we will see later. Okay. All right, so one of the views is that the Prophet ﷺ, when he went to the Isra and he made the Mi'raj and he ascended to the seven heavens, that he saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I believe one narration says when they asked him, he said, how, all I saw was light. Then there was a difference about the companions differing over, if the Prophet ﷺ actually saw Allah. There's a narration when Aisha said, radiallahu anha, that whoever has said that Allah, the Prophet seen Allah, has lied. And then there's a statement from Ibn Abbas saying that he saw him. Then there's an argument about that he saw him with his heart and not with his eyes, and all of those kind of things. And so, these are matters that are above our pay grade. But even still, that whatever he saw, it might have been exclusive to him. But still, knowing Allah, as the line mentions, that it is without any kayf, that the vision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not be like any kayf. And so we mentioned here in this last part of this hadith that many people will try to use the saying that you will see Allah. So this hadith, when the companions asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, says they asked him, was it possible to see Allah? And he said, you will see Allah just as you see this full moon, right? And so the scholars have explained, the Ahl Sunnah scholars have said that this means that you will see it just as sure as you clearly see this moon, you will have a clear seeing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but based on knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not encompassed by anything, not by direction, not by modality, not by place, by encompassment. And so that will be the vision that you will have. That will be clear, in the matter befitting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not how we think in this world what clear vision is, And so that is just something, it is better to just kind of not get into arguments about these things because, there are people who believe that, Allah will be seen like literally with the eyes. And so the next line, that this whole belief is a refutation of the Mu'tazila, that they said that it is impossible to see Allah at all. And because if to see something, it has to be in a direction or a place. And, I recently heard, I had to go back and find it, but like even some of the Wahhabi scholars, some of the big notable names have said this, that is it possible to see Allah except that he's in a direction? So, and if I find this statement, then this is the belief of the Mu'tazila, that you can only see Allah except in a direction. So that will put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a place and a location and making of some type of substance. So we know from the statement of Allah about Prophet Musa, he didn't see Allah. He saw, something that overwhelmed him. The Prophet ﷺ, there's argument about him seeing Allah, not actually seeing Allah, but he saw light. And then, seeing Allah in his heart, seeing Allah with his heart. And so whatever that means, that, we that's beyond our pay grade. But we know, once we know who Allah is, that's what we've been covering this whole time, about the proper belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he pre-existed eternally, that he exists without a place, without time, without direction. Time doesn't pass over him, and all of these qualities that we have discussed in the past that make Allah who he is. So he cannot be seen in a direction because directions don't apply to him. Because direction means proximity, location, and all of those things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we believe that he exists bila kayf, without a how and without a makan, bila makan. One of the statements that we believe in Ahl Sunnah, Allahu mawjudun bila makan. That Allah exists and without a place. All right. And so there's another argument. We will cover in another text. So that's the end of this. So the beatific vision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has more discussion to this, but we just trying to go by the book, inshallah. All right, and so that's the end of that. And let's back up. All right, so that's the end of that. Inshallah, we'll review it. Are there any questions? Okay, so we'll review it again next week, and hopefully our regulars will attend. If not, we'll sail without them. MashaAllah. Okay. All right, so alhamdulillah, hope this covers the point. So we cover lines 51 to 56, and inshallah we resume next week. So there are no questions. We'll conclude there. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum.